So the is a really fun element that's coming into the game now. And that is basically like a candy floss, sort of marshmallow looking string that you have to clear. And it feels great to play with. It adds a new shape to the game board. So I'd say keep an eye out for that.
Hello and welcome to Crush and Tell. This is the series where we lift the lid on the magic of Candy Crush Saga by introducing you to the people who make it all happen. Today I am joined by John. Welcome to Crush and Tell, John.
Thank you.
Well, let's go ahead and dive right in. Who are you and what do you do with Candy Crush?
So I'm a product manager in the gameplay team. So we're the team responsible for looking after all the levels in the game. About 20,000 at the moment, and every single game board is something that we are responsible for building, maintaining, and making sure it looks and feels awesome.
All right, before we dive in too deep, I've got a little warm-up question for you. If you could turn any Candy Crush feature into a real-life superpower, what would it be?
Honestly, the daily treat machine feels like a bit of a win every morning. Whenever you wake up, you log in. I would love that in real life. You just get a little bit of a boost.
Just a
every
treat
morning.
every morning.
Just for waking up.
All right, let's go ahead and dive into today's topic. From licorice swirls to rainbow twists and everything else you can find in the Candy Kingdom, today's episode is all about candy blockers. John, what are blockers and why do they exist?
Yeah, they're a really important part of the game. So every single level in Candy Crush has these tiny little elements that you have to clear to go and progress to the level objective. And yeah, the blockers are the fundamental part of that experience. So there's loads of them. We've got over 50. And
Over 50?
yeah, we're always making new ones and trying new things. So whether it's quite hard to get around or you need to sort of match something else next to it that maybe doesn't look like that candy or that blocker, yeah, they all add variety in their own special way.
Cool, and obviously some blockers are more popular than others. Some become almost iconic. What makes a blocker good, if you will, or even iconic from a game design perspective?
Yeah, from my side, the most important thing is that you know how it works. So the moment you start interacting with it and matching candies next to it, you understand exactly what it's meant to do. And then obviously when you open the level, you want it to look beautiful. So it's really got to be nice to look at. It's really got to be intuitive in terms of how you interact with it. And then it's got to be sort of add a twist to the rest of the game.
One of the things that's so great about blockers is that they all work differently, right? And they add a new level of challenge and really strategy you have to develop to overcome. Do you have like a couple favorite blockers or just a couple of blockers you can speak to in terms of how they work?
Yeah, absolutely. Jelly is a really popular one. That's on a lot of levels. And there are lots of layers to jelly, and it's normally part of the objective. So whenever you're hitting it and interacting with it, it feels nice as it splashes off the board, and it helps you get to the end of the level. So jelly's a good one. We also have cake. Cake's a really good one. That's not one of the 1x1 blockers. So normally the board's 9x9 as a square. And a lot of the blockers we have are 1x1, but cake's great because cake's 2x2. So it really takes a lot of the screen size up. And it feels good to match next to it. And then when it goes, it's a big explosion with a party booster at the end. So keep an eye out for cake. And then Toffee. Toffee is really popular as well. And normally with Candy Crush, you're heading top to bottom. So you're trying to clear things in sort of a downward motion. And Toffee uses gravity. So whenever you clear Toffee or something underneath Toffee, it starts to fall down the board as well, which adds to the sort of sense of movement and excitement as you play through.
Do you have a personal favorite blocker?
I've got loads. I think everything that's really positive for the game that helps me get towards the end is always welcome. So bubblegum pops up there, but rainbow twist is my favorite. So that's a nice sort of twist on the frosting that's on lots of levels, just because it's a really easy and intuitive element. But rainbow twist has an extra behavior where they're kind of in a chain, and if you clear one, the whole chain breaks away. So you want to think quite carefully about what order to hit those in and how to clear them most efficiently. And that, for me, is quite a satisfying feeling when they're all gone. It's like a little yes moment, and then, yeah, you carry on with the level.
Has anything ever gone wrong when designing new blockers?
I think not necessarily when we're designing new ones, but when we've got them in the game and we start to see how all the different players interact with them, then you start to notice that some things are better than others. And a good example with that is like the pepper bomb. So that was one that introduced a little mechanic where there was like an extra timer. So you have your moves on the level, and that's what your sort of how many moves you have to pass the level and complete the objective. And then the pepper bomb added like an extra timer that was just a little bit too stressful. So you want to have a
Okay.
nice, relaxing experience. You don't need something else counting down the time to when you're meant to have finished. So yeah, we got rid of that.
Well, and of course, Candy Crush Saga has so many different types of players that play for so many different types of reason.
Exactly.
You know, I like the strategy and the little bit of pressure, but that might be different for you or, you know, for the next player. So appealing to everyone is really quite a task.
Yeah, and also it's not only just every different player, but also those different experiences, whether it's like in the morning before you take the kids to school, in the evening when you're watching something on TV, like you want kind of like a different experience depending on what your environment is and how you feel. So yeah, it's really important to have that variety in the game.
Do you have any funny or perhaps surprising stories from working on blockers?
Yeah, loads. A few years ago, we had these little cherries that
Yes.
you had to go and collect. They're not technically a blocker, but they're an element
Okay.
on the board. And then someone in the team had a really creative idea of changing that into little gummy dragons. And so we had these cute little dragons that came into the game, and players absolutely loved it.
Dragons are great.
Yeah, who doesn't like dragons?
Candy Crush is constantly changing and evolving and taking people by surprise. Is there anything exciting in the works that you could maybe share or give players at home an exclusive sneak peek of?
So the Malomatic is a really fun element that's coming into the game now. And that is basically like a candy floss, sort of marshmallow looking string that you have to clear. And it feels great to play with. It adds a new shape to the game board. So I'd say keep an eye out for that.
Very cool. So that's just a little treat for the folks who watch Crush and Tell. Well, thank you so much for sharing the insight into blockers with us today. Before we let you go, do you have any questions for the community?
I think, what is their favorite blocker? What is it about that? How it looks, how it feels? How should we think about adding new creative things to the game? Because that's always information that we want to take in.
I'm a bubblegum pop fan myself. I love the kind of cascading effect that it can cause when you catch it just right.
They all go off and it's like, yes, this is
Feels
exploding.
very good. It's very satisfying.
Exactly.
John, thank you so much for being here and helping us to unblock the blockers. Folks, that is it for Crush and Tell until the next series. And in the meantime, we want to hear from you. What topics would you like to see covered in the next Crush and Tell? Thanks so much for joining and keep crushing it.